In three, two, one. All right. I'm honored to have the great John Roulac on. John is the executive producer of the Kiss the Ground documentary. He's been doing a lot of great work doing getting food forests planted all over the world, and yeah, standing up to our biggest challenges. John, thanks for joining. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me on.
There's so much that I'd love to talk to you about, but right now we've got glyphosate in the news, and we've got a big case coming up between before the Supreme Court soon concerning immunity from these pesticide makers. The Germans and the Chinese making these poisons that are banned in so many countries, but not ours, and we're using so much of it, and now they want a liability protection. So I wanted to ask you. Before we get into the answers of overcoming this, just how big is this problem? How big do you see glyphosate as a problem for us as a country?
Yeah, I mean, for 75 years, we've told farmers, and now they're farmers, the farmers today, their uncles, their grandfathers, their fathers, that chemistry is the solution. And it's going to take a while to change that to biology as their friend and and learn to cut it back or eliminate it. It's a huge issue. Uh, you know, Glyphosate, it has issues around their stomachs, digestive. Um, it it initially wasn't designed as an herbicide. It was a chelator to use in like tanks to like strip minerals and you know so it uh one farmer was telling me recently. I was at the Expo West show, how it really reduces manganese. So yeah, there's if you just look at some of the health issues, a lot started in the 80s and 90s, which was the introduction of glyphosate. It was the introduction of GMO crops, and it was also the acceleration of the vaccine schedule. So it's kind of a combination, perhaps, but it's definitely an issue.
Yeah, it's a chelator in a way. It's also registered as an antibiotic. So yeah, you talk about the gut, and not only does it mess with our gut lining, but right, it totally messes with our microbiome, which is so important for our digestion and everything.
Yeah, yeah. One thing I just want to share, there's a lot of people who, you know, uh, a lot of people like on my Facebook feed or LinkedIn feed that basically said nothing ever about glyphosate 3 years ago. And I find it ironic that those who have not been involved in it all are yelling at those of us who have been working on it for 30 years as if they know. They don't know farmers, and they just say it's poisonous and there's bad people in DC and fuck you. Kind of like, you know, it's uh sorry for that, but it's kind of that's kind of the attitude. And this is not an easy thing to solve. And so they want to use, they just kind of like whatever, like I've there are people who get paid millions of dollars to sit in high rise office buildings or condos in Washington D.C. and New York City and London and Brussels that just come up with amazing strategies to divide people up based on their political, ideological, just keep everybody separated while they can just keep selling their stuff. And a lot of people don't seem, they're very effective at dividing up the movement.
For sure, the glyphosate is it's so entrenched, and yeah, there's no easy answers. But you know, you wrote recently about the investment in regenerative agriculture. About $1 billion going forward. Do you think this is big enough to move the needle? It's gonna really get us headed in the right direction.
Well, yeah, it's there was the program announcement of a regenerative pilot program, about $700 million, and they kind of transferred it for some other existing programs. But it is it is a little different program. It's the first time that the federal government has adopted regenerative agriculture. And as someone who's been promoting regenerative agriculture, writing about it, films and getting people to talk about it, that's a big win. They're also, they haven't announced it yet, but they're going to be having a panel of farmers and regenerative farmers and ranchers and others on a government panel to advise USDA. That's never ever happened before, and so that's positive. But um, the current programs at USDA and EPA are not sufficient to really address this, and there needs to be changes. And there's some people who are working on that. Um, like I'll give you just some examples of some potential solutions. First off, banning it. That's like saying, well, we know plastics are bad, so let's just ban plastics. Imagine what would happen at your supermarket. You know, or saying, um, I always tell this to some of my friends who are screaming about this or that. I said, but you know, you're pulling up the gas pump and you're using oil that's drilled in the Amazon that's poisoning indigenous people. And many of them are dying. So that must make you a killer of indigenous people. Like it's like things are not black and white. They're doing that because that's what they need to do to get to their job. You know, maybe if they were down in the Brazilian rainforest, they might have a different view, but they're not. So they just pump the gas just like I do and just like you do. So there's not this. We like to kind of say this is like, this is good and this is bad, and bad people are on one side and good people are on the other. It's a kind of a simplified, we're very tribal. Remember, if you go back to like 5, 6, 10,000 years ago, there was maybe little tribes of us of 30 or 40, and the leader is the most experienced. And imagine if somebody comes along and goes, you have the wrong way to move. If you get kicked out, you're not going to survive, yeah, 6, 7,000 years ago. And so we have to, there's a lot of human dynamics at play. I kind of just share this. As someone who's been fighting Monsanto for 40 years, I've become more of a philosopher than necessarily a person that has all the answers sometimes.
You know, a great place to start a course, Alexis, if you agree, is banning maybe the use just of glyphosate as a desiccant on our crops, drying them out at harvest. Like
Yeah, that would be a good thing. I was just talking to a farmer friend, and he said, they grow chickpeas in Eastern Washington. Virtually all, he says all the, and he doesn't like glyphosate. He said virtually all the chickpeas grown in Eastern Washington and that Palouse, in Idaho, they all use glyphosate for a desiccant. And if you took it away, they'd stop growing it because they couldn't. They just can't make it. They're used to that for that system. But chickpeas. Yeah, there was a pasta company, Chickpea, that got really hammered like a few years ago and people such high glyphosate level. So, but that same farmer was telling me um, that there's a system. So you may be aware, people farmers don't apply glyphosate directly to the crops. They blend it with water, and then they put it and then they put in their spray rigs and spray it. Did you know that there is a way to change the pH of the water? And when you do that, they're experiencing up to 50% reduction in the amount of glyphosate they need to spray.
This is an issue a lot of times when we're using a product and we want to make sure the job gets done. A lot of times people use a little more than is called for. So yeah, going the other way with strategies like this. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, we need that. There's also there's a bunch of different companies that are using, like there's a company that's using like NVIDIA chips for laser weeding. There's a bunch of different companies. Greenfield Robotics is someone that I know, uh, the founder of. What really needs is, like, if you look back, why did wind and solar take off? Because we gave grants and tax credits and things. We need to do similar to agriculture. Like the private sector has some of the solutions. And so, that's some of the things I'm advocating for. I'm not quite sure how that's going to come about. Um, uh, so that's one thing to look at. Is can and some of the recent announcement that just came out. I haven't seen a lot of details. There's something with EPA and USDA and HHS. Some initial ideas around that, but we need to do more. Like for instance, we need to get off we basically need to get off these conventional inputs, whether it's synthetic pesticides, fertilizers. There's a company called Ensol that's like a chlorella algae you can grow, and farmers are applying it, and it allows to tap into the nitrogen in the atmosphere. And we put all this phosphorus on our soils, but there's plenty of phosphorus in the soils. They're just not available. So it's like there's all these nutrients that plants need to grow that is free. And that's what Gabe Brown, that's what we show in Common Ground and Kiss the Ground. They just figured out a way to do that. But do you think universities teach people how to tap into nature to get the nutrition for the soils, or do we tell them about chemistry?
We tell them about these so-called conventional inputs you're talking about
Yeah,
there, and
yeah,
you mentioned they're a chelator, right? So this is why this is one reason we got the nutrient deficiency, right? You talk about making them available.
yeah,
Instead, we're going
yeah.
to
Which is, yeah, I want to talk about, there's a if people one thing people can do on their health is to focus on these trace minerals. So I'll just talk about that real briefly. It's a good for people to do. Some of the ones that people are missing, and if you're missing, just like in soil, if you're missing minerals in the soil, your plants are not going to be healthy. So selenium is one. They've disappeared from our soils because of poor nutrition and synthetic fertilizers. The best way to get selenium is eat one Brazil nut a day. Or if you eat whole wheat, if you do happen to eat wheat, or organ meats are very high in selenium. But if you're not eating organ meats and wheat, you're likely very low in selenium. So one Brazil nut a day does. Selenium is involved in 25 biochemical processes, including your cells, you're maintaining your cell health. Um, Another one is sodium. Most people think sodium's bad for you. The doctors have told you. But you need 1 teaspoon a day. It's a trace mineral, and if you don't get any, you could go to the hospital. If you get the right amount, you're in good shape. And if you ate 100 times the amount, you could kill yourself. So sodium's really important. And then also boron. Have you heard of boron before?
of course. There's
Yeah.
there's a line from a movie, Adam Sandler movie about boron. Yeah.
Yeah, there's boron, California. I stopped by there and took a photo, posted on my Facebook like last year. So, Russell Hendrick, the great regen farmer out of Hickory, North Carolina, won the award for highest yield for corn, dryland corn, and from North Carolina, beat out Iowa. Can you imagine that?
That's
You
wild,
know,
isn't it?
yeah, and he applies boron to his soils. He also puts that algae, does a bunch of different things. He's a good one to follow if you want to find out what's going on with farmers. He uses some glyphosate, but much less. Um, it's not easy to get rid of this glyphosate, but the boron you can take in a capsule. It's mined, and it's the number one way to boost male testosterone, and also women need a little testosterone as well. It helps for osteoporosis and a bunch of different things, and it's people don't know about that. And The other thing was lithium. Well, I was with a grass-fed A2 farmer, dairy farmer guy was telling me about lithium. Guess what the best source of lithium is? Raw eggs. If you cook it too much, you use a lithium, you lose the lithium. And that was and he was also mentioning about manganese being stripped away. Hemp seed is a good source of manganese, but make sure you're getting your minerals. I'm a big fan of pumpkin seeds and chlorella as a way to get a lot of vitamins and minerals. I do like an organic pumpkin protein powder that's grown over in Europe. Um, but or you can just eat some pumpkin seeds also, you know.
Tell me, if you just do the organ meat, don't you get a lot of these, or are they not all in there?
Yes. Yeah, if you eat organ meat, you got a lot of nutrition.
So yeah, this goes back to, yeah, like you said, glyphosate's a chelator. It's our nutrient density of our food is just maybe a tenth sometimes what it should be, what it was 50 years ago. And
Yeah. Here's a funny one. In 1939, the USDA secretary, I think it was Henry Wallace, said that America faced a great crisis. And that crisis was we had lost the minerals in our soils. 1939.
wow, wow, that's unreal. And what had caused it back then?
Yeah, and
That,
yeah,
the Dust Bowl, is that just too much tillage?
too much tillage. You know, the one thing I want to just share, there's this perception that somehow farmers, modern agriculture, the chemical agriculture, this is all the problem, they're bad. What we really are facing is humans have not been honoring nature for 1,000 years. I mean, this started, Rome salted Carthage's fields, farm fields, and that's a big desert area now. you know, they used to have the great cedar Lebanon, the cedars of Lebanon. Those were huge forests. We've been denuding the forest for tree, for ships and building, and this has been going on. This is really a consciousness. We want to blame this group or that, and and I believe a major part of climate change has to do with nature and not necessarily burning oil, but basically for the last 30 plus years, been this mantra that oil and gas and coal are the problem and solar, wind, and hybrids are the solution. Or, and that end of subject. And it basically, you know, the reason why forests are burning all over, they say, oh, it's climate change. That's just misinformation. It's burning because they used to be a mixed diversity of trees. And then when fires don't spread in old growth forests. They just don't burn. The trees can take the burning. I used to live in a redwood forest, and there was this giant tree. It burned up in the inside, huge forest, and it just stood there. It's still living, gets scarred. And it's also burning because we're spraying glyphosate on these trees. But the media, so people, especially people just don't, unless you've studied ecology and nature, you just believe what you think the New York Times tells you. you know, but the New York Times said, what did they say about the Iraq war, or what did they say about, seed oils that they're good for you? You know, these media organs, and people are just looking at screens for their reality. But anyways, I probably should get on to some more things I got to
Let's
do in
talk
my
about.
day.
I want to talk about your new venture you got going on here, the Coco Clean.
All right.
I'm on the road a bit here. I'm in a hotel, and the fragrance. You can smell the chemicals in the air. You come in here, and they're not organic. These are carcinogens. So I know you're working to provide some better options. Can you
Yeah,
tell
I'm
me that?
I'm Coco Clean, cleans like a dream, and it's a laundry detergent powder. Um, it's very concentrated, only a half a tablespoon. And we've just started launching this at cococlean.com. Also have a dish for dishwashing. And I read somewhere, and I'm actually, I don't know if I put this up on LinkedIn yet, but the most regenerative, sustainable chemical or material is one that we don't use. So by not
Which
buying
one is
some,
that? Wait, am I missing
it,
that? What?
yeah, it's just don't use. The idea is by using less, it's the best. The way to be lived the best on the earth is to use less.
I got you.
So for instance, this is a half a tablespoon. Most people are washing their clothes with 1.5 to 2 tablespoons of material. That means those are all those trucks that have to drive to the factory to drop it off. Then that has to get blended up. And then you need more, and you need bigger tanks to blend it up. And then you got to put it on trucks, and you have 4 times as much trucks on the highway, and you have 4 times as much packaging. So this is 6 loads, only a half tablespoon. So it's an example. Less is more. Um, it's powered by coconut, oxygen, and enzymes. Um, and you can get it at cococlean.com. We're going to be going into more stores, or we were in about 100 stores in California, and but we're redoing the formula, and this is our new packaging, and we're looking forward to that. And we're going to put 7% of profits to regeneration. Yeah. So that's a little about that, and been working on that for 2.5 years while I'm still, writing articles and supporting the regeneration movement.
I love it. I love it. A good way to stand on your soapbox is get a soapbox
Yes,
up.
standing on a soapbox for regeneration. I'm actually going to create a graphic. Um, have you ever heard of Hendrick's Gin?
Yeah. What do you
So
got?
it's a gin company, and it's a iconic like branding. They took from a basic concept of using cucumbers and gin and created this amazing brand that just grow and consumers love it. One of the people who helped build that brand for the last 30 years just joined our company. So we're working to create the Hendrix gin of detergent in terms of like a marketing, and communication. Just make it fun and cheeky, and yeah. So so we're working on that right now. Yeah,
I
yeah.
love
So some like just communication and our social media, because it's a big job when you're the founder to bring the right people and do all the things all at once.
Oh yeah, a lot of hats to wear. So
Yeah.
is there another installment in the kind of the kiss the ground coming around?
Yeah, yeah. Another film coming out. It's called Groundswell. Yeah. And that'll be out at the end of this year, and it'll stream. It's Common Ground and Kiss the Ground streaming on Amazon, and Groundswell will be streaming on Amazon. So it's just getting finished up now. Yeah, and it's
Yeah,
more focused on the international. Yeah, there's some great international in India and South America and Africa. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I helped hook up some of my friends who are doing amazing work in Uganda refugee centers, bringing in permaculture.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, it's so nice to just see the land managed responsibly in harmony, and
Yeah,
yeah, you can just see how
yeah.
much.
And one last thing I'll just share to show you, there's 500 million smallholder farmers in the global South, and agroforestry regenerations. We help we've helped 30,000 farmers become create food for us. And I would say if you took the 10 richest people in the world who shout the most about climate change, from Bezos to Gates to Bloomberg, I don't I can't recall them ever supporting the small. If we wanted to do something about climate change and help indigenous people who've suffered the most, we would help the smallholder farmers, and they're basically, you know, doing zero. Um, maybe they can say, oh, we're doing this water thing here or there, but just helping them, all they need is some education, some training and some planting materials, and they can create abundant food for us in their farms and still grow their same crops that they're growing, but just add 20 more. We put bananas in their outdoor shower water. Now they have bananas. Farmers never had these bananas. Now they have fresh bananas. We grow trees along their fields, etc. So there's a great video on agroforestry regeneration communities. But listen, I'm running late for a meeting. You take care. Thank you for
Thank you
having me
so much
on.
for stopping by here. Yep.
All right.
Appreciate you. Look forward to the
Take
next
care. All
installment.
right. Safe
Thank you.
travels.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Likewise. Bye bye.